Hey everybody, it's Book of Catherine, and it's Tasmanian, and he is purring for you. So anyway, this video is going to be about Greta, and I guess I have a very unique perspective because of my history. So I grew up teaching in the classroom. I assisted in classrooms since I was very young. So I've assisted in classrooms pre-K all the way up through elementary school. I've worked in classrooms like right up until I was a teacher, and then that's what I got my degree in, and that's where I got my secondary education. When I went to graduate school, I did go to graduate school in the #1 school in the nation. All my teachers wrote the textbooks that are still #1 textbooks today. And they write other textbooks based upon that. On those textbooks. I feel very lucky. And across from that, I've also been exposed to Hollywood. So I feel like that kind of gives me this kind of like overlapping knowledge base. And then, I know people in DC and all of our research and what we've done. So I just want to say, like, when it comes to Greta, I don't know why, I find it interesting that like I said, I've said it before where I've said, I lay at her parents' feet, but it's very possible that she's old enough. Like, it's very possible that she's over 18 and she looks younger. We have a lot of kids today that are starring in music videos that appear to be underage when they're actually over age. The grooming, the way things go now, I know that when I was raised, I know by my upbringing that you can look a lot younger, until I didn't look my age until I grew up, if that makes sense, until I matured. I didn't mature until my 20s, between age 20 and 25. I grew up a lot between 20 and 25. So when I was 20, people thought I was 14. And then by the time I reached 25, then they were like, okay, they finally were like, okay, this is your age. Does that make sense? But I had to mature in those years. I really grew up and I went out on my own. So if you don't have a maturity level, it can really, really, if someone's really helicopter parented you, you can look a lot younger than you are. It changes your face and things like that. So and on top of that, I really want to just ask, I just saw an article today that said that changing the rules in New York, if they change the rules in New York, that they'll give the governor of New York more power than the president of the United States. And so they're going to give the governor of New York the ability to override the president of the United States in pardon power, which means that the voters of New York will have more voting power than all 50 states combined. And there are pardons that were made in the past by our presidents. Terrorists have been pardoned. International criminals have been pardoned. Bombings, like massive bombers, have been pardoned. And nothing's ever been brought up before now. And that would give one state that much power. And people are supporting it because it's being put under the label free speech. They're saying it's a free speech bill. And it's tear up the Constitution and give a governor more power than the president, a duly elected president of the United States, more power just because it's labeled a free speech law. And that's kind of my point, is that we have a lot of press out there that says one thing and it's actually something else. For example, I just published today how the climate change, for example, this is a great example, the UN climate change agenda, it says it's a climate change agenda. But then when you go to the climate change conventions, what are they working on? What did they just do at September 23rd at the UN Climate Change Convention in Germany? They worked on the open borders agreement. They updated the open borders agreement that had border control and open borders in the UN Migration Compact. And they said that's part of an integral element of climate change. And then they went through the sustainable development goals. Well, it turns out there's 17 areas of law that goes underneath climate change. And everybody hears climate change and they see that little rainbow thing on the side behind Greta Thunberg. They don't realize that 17 areas of law that affect transportation, that affect abortion rights. They don't know that it affected, like, one of the things the UN did with climate change was the abortion bill that said that you don't have to have a medical license to practice an abortion. And that just flew over people's heads. And I'm just kind of like, well, it's nice that the governor of New York told everybody and lit up the sky with pink. But I'm like, the internal research from Planned Parenthood itself said the death rates skyrocketed in California when they said you didn't need a medical license anymore. Just when they went down to one level to nurses, the death rate skyrocketed for women. And in New York, when they lit it up pink, they removed all medical license requirements. I don't celebrate that. I don't celebrate that. As an independent, I don't celebrate that. I have a hard time doing that. So just because they say something, and that was under climate change, that's under the 17 areas of government. And that's coming from a different place. That's coming from Germany. And I'm like, that's in Bonn, Germany, where they're meeting over open borders and everything like that. I just because an article says something doesn't mean that's actually what it is. For for her to go out there and to perform the way that she does, and I say perform, I can't help but say perform, as someone who has been in the education system, worked with disabled kids forever, and also suffering from a disability myself within my brain, you cannot turn that off. It does not work that way. There's not a performance switch where at the right moment you get to go on stage and all disabilities just get to melt away and you suddenly become excellent diction. The diction comes and suddenly everything becomes perfect pitch tone. That can happen, but it doesn't happen. For example, like you see me record, right? I record when those glorious moments happen. You can't set those. There's no amount of medication with what they're saying that she has. There's no amount of medication they can give her. There's no sign of medication in her system. There's no sign of medication. The medication that it would take for her to have the kind of diction that she had, the kind of clarity of thought, that the kind of dilation in her eyes, for her to do what she did at UNGA for climate change. It's impossible for her to do that and have all of the things they say that she has. And my point being is that just because they say that people have things, for example, someone said, oh, like this one celebrity said something. And I'm like, did you see them say it? Or did you just hear it? There have been so many instances now of Twitter being hacked, or like Vox, or all these different publishers. They will say that they will go ahead and use a celebrity's name and they will say that they said these things. Or they'll say a fan said that a celebrity said these things. They'll get around celebrities and they'll say, and these celebrities have to sue or whatever. But there's plenty of ways with social medias today to make it look like a celebrity said something when they didn't say anything at all. And it's very frustrating for celebrities today to be out there. So we're not living in a world where you can trust like just everything that you're hearing and saying. So when they lift up this person that has, like the 12 disabilities that make it impenetrable, but then excellent diction and no sign of anything at exactly the right moment on exactly the day when it's most important at this 4 minute, because I watched it, it was 4 minutes long. It's 4 minutes in exactly this. And there was no recognition of what they're saying. It was a pure performance. It was no knowledge of what they were saying. And if you listen to the audience was all ambassadors. Like she was saying, you. Did you notice it didn't strike her that she was going, how dare you? And then they'd all cheer and there wasn't like a reaction to her of like, well, I'm angry at you. Why are you all cheering? Did you guys not notice that? Did you guys not get that? If she was truly angry at them, why were they all cheering for her? Did you not pick up on that? If she's truly angry, like, why did she keep it? Why, when they cheered, did it like keep her going? Does that make sense? Unless it was a performance. I mean, you have to understand performance art and how it works and be like, what they were doing, all those ambassadors, what she was saying is exactly the climate change agenda. That is, they literally write the headlines. That entire group, those ambassadors, they don't answer to anyone. They don't answer to any citizen in the world. They have stakeholders. It's published in all of their UNFCCC documents. They have stakeholders. They have stakeholders like Jeff Bezos and the Rothschilds and Soros and Warren Buffett and Oprah and all of these companies now, and Amazon signed on with $444 million. They have in Tesla. They have these huge mega companies, Microsoft. Those are their stakeholders. Those ambassadors answer, all those ambassadors that are cheering her on answer to major corporations. They don't answer to the citizens of the world. And so when she's like, how dare you turn to us young people and looking for hope? And I'm like, I don't think anyone's turned into a young person. Like, no one's turned into a young person except these UN ambassadors who keep lifting you up. Like, you're lifting, we have all these child labor laws. Like, everyone's trying to say no to child marriage. Everyone says no to child labor laws. Everyone says no, we're putting all these restrictions on kids. That's not something that society wants. Why are you yelling? Except for this room. This room here keeps putting up their agenda and using kids to do it. But there's no resonating when they're the ones who hired her. Does that make sense? And so my point is saying, like, why are we just, if the headlines just keep being proven wrong over and over and over again, I don't know why everyone just keeps trusting them. Like, they say, oh, this person's this, and everyone just goes, okay, they're this, or oh, this person's this, okay, they're this, or oh, this person has heart disease, or oh, this person died in a room of this. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, everyone just believes it today? Like, with everything that has been proven not true, these headlines, they just completely, none of them, I'm just like, don't you understand what's going on with the media today? It isn't true. I keep trying to say, like, please watch, like, unless there's a clip of a person doing it, like, unless there is a press release of them doing it, which is why I try so hard to give you documents. Does that make sense? I try so hard to give you documents if I can, or person's website, or, video footage of it happening. But it's very difficult to ever go off of a headline of just someone saying it. It's almost all propaganda today. And if they just say, like, oh, this politician is for you. Like, for example, like these politicians that were for, it's hysterical, the politicians that were for open borders in Mexico, where these landowners in New Mexico, their businesses were being run over by the cartels. The cartels were attacking their business and their land, and it wasn't even safe for them to have their kids anymore, and they were going to have to close their business because 100 to 200,000 people are coming through a month on their land through the Rio Grande, right? Well, isn't it interesting that the legislatures in New Mexico, like Linda Lopez and Martinez and Caballero, these three legislators all at the same time submitted sanctuary state policies this year, all at the same time, and only two got rejected, right? So one's in. And they do that. They submit three. So you think, oh, it got failed. You see on the registry, oh, two failed. That means it didn't. No, there were three entered. Three were entered. And, and each, if you look on the registry, only one name is next to each bill. Where is the other person's name? Like, where's their name? That bill is out there somewhere. And so that's why some maps have New Mexico on it and some don't. And you're like, well, there's a missing bill. But when you look on the Sustainable Development website, it says that the reason Taz is like, I want to go to bed, mommy. I'm not interested anymore. You want to do it? You got the cute paws? You want to show them your cute paws? No? Okay. So anyway, it's so hard. He's so cute. Anyway, but their website said that their actual goal, when you look at their website for the UN migration update underneath climate change on September 23rd, it was like, here are the goals that this UN migration sanctuary state thing like meets. And it's like, oh, sustainable development goal number 16. And you click on it and it's like, to fight illegal trafficking. And you're like, the sanctuary state policy brought in like 100 to 200,000 people a month. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, wait a minute, like, you say you want to fight it, like, it has these great words, but what is the action actually happening? So they can say these wonderful, glorious things, but what's actually happening on the ground? You know, that's very different. That's why I say, like, check CDC records and things like that and see what's actually happening on the ground. Really believe there's this great saying that I've heard from a lot of wise people now. I've heard it in books and I've heard it on from therapists and I've heard it from people I've met and I've read it, a variety of books now, from self-help to like historical references. And it's like, don't believe believe a person, believe what they're telling you. And that means like we don't want to believe what people are telling us sometimes. We don't want to believe they can actually have bad intent. And it's not necessarily that they have bad intent. Life's a competition, and sometimes they just have chosen a certain path to compete. This is their mode of competition. You have to think of it that way. Use that to help you cope with it. Be like, oh, that's their chosen method of competition. Oh, like some people are choosing this bill with New York and New York's governor and being like, we're going to rip up the competition or the Constitution and give the governor more power than the president because we hate Trump so much. That's our mode of competition. We don't care what the cost is. We don't care what the cost is. We just hate Trump so much. And that's their mode of competition, is just like emotion before thought, emotion before reason. Like they just want that justice, and they don't care. Their rage is so close at the top, and or they have such a lust for power. They're like, we will be New York, and New York is better than the rest of America. And they have an upper class idea, and they think the rest of America is lower class citizens. And that's like Nazism. It's just all about upper class versus lower class. That goes back into Nazism of just like there's an upper and a lower, and the lower should just be trampled on. Like they don't have as many rights as the upper class does. And they don't think you should have as many rights. So forget it. Like, you know, forget it. You don't have the right to vote like they do, and their votes will now have more power. That's the way they've chosen to compete in life. Just like easiest method goes, and like screw the other person, screw the other people in life. In my experience, that doesn't get you very far. That's the thing of like anger, putting gasoline. Remember someone said that it was such a great analogy. That's taking your anger, and you can take your anger, it's like gasoline, and you can either just set it on fire and boom, it blows up, and then it can be chaos. It can blow up more than you expect. For example, these people will feel really great when their New York governor gets it. But what if a GOP governor ever gets in? And then when Trump's gone and when they get like a Democrat into office, and then that Democrat doesn't have the power, like they don't know how it's going to go. And then they realize the Constitution's gone or whatever and stuff like that. And then they don't know what's down the line. Like they don't know who's funding that bill. And it could be the next guy that murders their mom that gets pardoned. They don't know what's coming down the line. They just want to get over on Trump. So they don't know what's coming down the line, but they want to get that anger just burned up. They want to get rid of it. But this great guy told me, put that gasoline in a car and let it take you somewhere. And I've just learned the most successful people in life do that. They use their anger to get me somewhere. And I've seen that like in my life now, the anger, like when I get angry about something, with my research, it takes me on a walk. Like that truly powers me out of bed. It's the only thing it's not the only thing. Joy does it too. But it like powers me up. It gets me like wanting to talk or wanting to say something. When there's no one around, it's enough to get me to talk and just rise up out of bed and gets my legs moving with like nothing else. And so that's good for my body. It's really good. It gets me past the pain. And then when the pain comes later and the aftermath comes, I'm just kind of like, well, it was worth it. Does that make sense? I'm just like, well, it got me somewhere. I got my body stronger, and I at least got some knowledge out there, and I at least got some education out there, or at least got some facts out there that aren't being said anywhere else. Like, at least I have something to show for it. And so that's the difference, is that you can have it take you somewhere, and instead of letting it just explode, like instead of just having it like having my husband come home and just me going blah on him and then maybe damaging my relationship with him, or calling up one of my friends and going blah and then maybe damaging that relationship. And that's just not a healthy way to go. And so it does, we often think about, I've been talking a lot on my channel about like, oh, be careful about the people that you let in. But it's also important to think about others. We have to think about how to socialize with others as well. Do you know how to talk to, and do you know how to think of others in our society? You're going to have to think about others when you get angry. You know, is this going to blow back on me? Is there going to be a blowback? Does this, when I vote for something, am I thinking the whole of society? Because I'm involved in that fabric of society. This could affect me 30 years from now. Am I thinking of that, or am I just thinking of what I want now? So I'm certainly thinking of that when I'm like, don't vote any more Ivy League. I'm like, I've seen the effects of it. No, no, no. And so anyway, so that's my thoughts on Greta Thunberg. I'm just like, oh, are you kidding? Like, why are we thinking that anything the press says about her is true? Believe what you see on camera. And what you see on camera is that all of a sudden she's ill when she's in a dialogue with reporters, but when the greatest amount of pressure is on, when she's in front of a massive audience on a world stage, suddenly there's like no fear, no anxiety, no sign of medication, no sign of health in, nothing, perfect clear diction suddenly, and no sign of anger towards the people that she's supposedly angry at, no reaction to the audience whatsoever, none of the, whatever. And then it comes in and the tics are, when they do come, it's when there's an audience there and it gets this great audience reaction just right on time. It's all very, very timed, and it's perfect, and it's wonderful, and it's glorious for propaganda. But I wouldn't ever say, I mean, I just, it's so well done that I wouldn't say that she's as young as everyone says that she is. And that's something we've also learned. We've learned that over and over again, is that people say that they're younger than they are. And I'm just like, why are we believing headlines again? Why? I mean, it seems to be like the big hurdle for everyone is to actually criticize her. And I'm like, someone decided to step on the world stage. If her parents did it or whatever, that's it. Is it affecting politics? Is it affecting the world stage? Shame on the UN for using a child. Shame on the UN for using a child. Shame on for every UN ambassador that cheered that girl on. Shame on them. Right? But to say that we don't have the right to speak, that's saying that we're lower class compared to that person. That's ridiculous. I will not live in fear like that. I will not let somebody judge my right to speak. We live in a free society. We're supposed to. Anyway, I love you guys so much. You want to say goodbye, Tazzy? Just a snore. That's it. All right, bye guys. I'll see you later. Have a good one. And Crowder did a really good, one of his best, I thought. He had a really good commentary. He brought up some good things. But he's one of the few that's actually made commentary on the things that he said. But he also went ahead and bought into like what the headline said about her, like all the, and it almost sounds ridiculous that as he lists all of her disabilities. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, I can't, I'm just like, how's anyone buying this? And maybe it's just my background. Maybe it's my experience. But honestly, the first thing that made me doubt it is just our experience with headlines. The headlines have never been true. Like the victim, they have played the victim card way, way too much. And it's been proven not to be true way, way too often. I learn, I believe what they tell me. I believe people. I believe them. I believe what they tell me about them. And I believe the headlines. They have told me a million times we don't know how to tell the truth. I believe them. I believe them. I believe what they've told me. They've told me a million times when we write a headline, we'll retract it. We'll retract it 5 days later. I believe them. So anyway, love you guys so much.